Hey everybody. I wanted to actually take the time to do a video to address a question that arises periodically. Today, I got a tweet from somebody asking me to go back to the kind of advocacy blogging and sex workers' rights commentary that I used to do. And from about 2007 to about 2014, I was primarily known as a blogger for sex workers' rights and for the rights of the adult film industry. And that blogging came out of the fact that I had been researching a book that I was writing, a novel I was writing called Eros Empire, which eventually came out in 2012 and remains in print. Um, but that my blogging, my advocacy work came out of that. And so I became actually fairly well known for doing that, and got a very positive response in a lot of from a lot of areas. The sex industry, sex workers loved it. Loved the commentary that I was doing and the advocacy I was doing, that kind of thing. And I got a positive response from a lot of people like that. But after a certain point, I just had to stop doing it, and I couldn't do it anymore. And so there's been a lot of speculation as to why. And I want to take the opportunity to kind of really explain definitively what happened. So a lot of people have speculated that it had something to do with my conversion to Christianity, to which I would say yes, but not for the reasons that you would think. There's an assumption that when you convert to Christianity, you're supposed to embrace like ancient Israelite laws about sexuality and human interaction and hygiene and all of these other and medical care and all these other things, which to me is just absolutely ridiculous. That's a whole other video, but suffice it to say, no, my personal values with regards to sex did not change. I don't have any problem with premarital sex. I don't have any problem with free love. I don't have any problem with any of that. I have no problem with premarital sex. It may be the only sex I ever have, but suffice it to say, no. And even if it had changed my personal feelings around sexuality and sexual conduct, even if that had changed, I am still a very strong believer in, the separation of church and state, and I very strongly believe that what I believe personally is for me to believe, and the morality that I adopt is for me to adopt. It's not to be forced on other people. I would resent it if other people tried to force their morality on me, so I don't try to force it on other people. So even if that had been the change, the larger political connotations of what I was talking about would remain the same. So the way that the conversion to Christianity affected it was really because of what I think happens when you accept Jesus Christ into your life and into your heart is I think Christianity allows you, by acknowledging that you're a sinner, acknowledging that you need Jesus to help you through this, you become able to take a deep dive journey into yourself that is terrifying for a lot of people. And now that's not to say that I have not also used secular guides in doing that. I am in therapy. I see a therapist every couple of weeks, and I and I have all of that. But what facilitates that best, I think, that deep dive into who you are. It's scary. It's horrifying to deep dive into who you are and really suddenly get a grip on, oh my God, the reality of who I am. It's a scary thing. And, I think people have kind of very Lovecraftian mental breakdowns from doing that and from being exposed to it. And I think that the love of Jesus Christ provides you with the reassurance and the guiding hand that you need to go into yourself and to go through that process and come out better for it. And that's not to say it's easy, but you're able to go through it and come out better for it. And so What happens, though, is that personal process became very all-consuming in my mind and in terms of what was important to me. And I realized that up until that point, I had been somebody who, while I appreciated I appreciated and enjoyed friends and family and people in my life and that sort of thing, and personal relationships and connections and all of that, I was singularly focused on my career goals and my ambitions and things like that, to the exclusion of everything else, because I had this very toxic belief that if I focused on friends and family beyond a certain point, I would I would compromise my goals and my ambitions. And that's not necessarily true. Now, there are people and situations that will pull you off your course and pull you away from your dreams and your goals, and it's important to recognize those people when they come along. But in general, though, cultivating strong, healthy friendships and relationships, and especially with family and close family and that sort of thing, that's not something to be neglected. And I realized how neglectful I had been of that. And I realized that, I realized how much pain had probably been caused by my absence in that regard. And I realized I needed to work on things like being a better friend, being a better son, being a better, being a better communicator, and all of that. And those things became more intensely important to me, very, very much to the exclusion of all of my political opinions. So that became very important to me, and the deep dive also revealed a lot about me. I realized that, if we're to use the 7 deadly sins as a rubric, wrath was a problem that I had. And I couldn't see that at the time because we rationalize it away, like we rationalize everything away. I did not see my wrathful nature as a problem because in my day-to-day life, I would be filled with anger and contempt at people, but I thought it was, that annoyed me or upset me in some way or something. But I thought it wasn't a problem because I never expressed that to them. I thought, well, I have self-control. I don't express these things out to people. When they upset me, I don't say anything about it, so it can't be a problem. Well, that's not true. It was still corroding me on the inside. It was still making me miserable, still bringing me down as a person. And I needed to refocus my appreciation for an understanding of people. And there's to give you a metaphor for what I'm talking about, and it's interesting because it's a metaphor that comes from a noted atheist, but there's a wonderful show called Afterlife starring Stephen Fry. Not Stephen Fry, Ricky Gervais. I don't know why I get those two mixed up, but Ricky Gervais. And he plays a widower he's a newspaper journalist who's a widower that's lost his wife, obviously. And it's a story about the grieving process. And this is not giving anything away when I say this, but I really liked what they did with the show because it was not just like they're going to have him find a new woman and replace the old one with a new one and move on with life. They didn't do that. That would have been easy. They didn't do that, and they hinted that was what they were going to do, but kind of never did. Anyway, what ultimately allows him to move forward with his life was realizing that all of these people that he held in such contempt, that he had such a low opinion of, because he's angry at the world and he's taking his hostility out on everybody, realizing that all of these people that he held in such contempt are actually really wonderful and interesting and valid and vital people in their own lives. And he always, he looked down on everybody as being very beneath him and everything. And ultimately he comes to realize that these are important people just because they're people. And that was the kind of realization that I needed to have, and the kind of focus that I needed to have. And that's just one example of what I learned about myself in that deep dive, man. And so those things are more important to me right now. And that's why, one of the ways as I've approached new issues that I've talked about on the channel, like, talking about Chris Chan, talking about the situation between Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood, that kind of thing. the response instead of getting a response that's like, 60% positive and 40% viciously angry negative, I now find myself getting a response that's like 95% positive, and within the 5% that disagree, 4.5% of that are people who politely disagree. That's an extraordinary difference. And maintaining that kind of discipline and that kind of focus is very important to me. And I know, moving into my next reason, I know that if I went back to arguing with or debating the viewpoints of the anti-porn activists like Gail Dines and Gail Dines and Shelley Lubin and Patrick Truman and all these people. Honestly, those are people I hold in contempt. I know that I hold in contempt, and they are people because I know that they are bad people. They are people that I will never be able to. They are people that I know I will never be able to reasonably. I would never reasonably be able to feel an affectionate level of love or respect for. They are contemptible people. Because I know that. I know that engaging with them is going to be corrosive for me. And so I need to take a step back from that. So those are some very big reasons, but it's certainly not because I became prudish after converting to Christianity. No, not at all. And I know, by the way, to all of the people that would want to write in and tell me, that I'm a false Christian and a false prophet, like I never said I was a true prophet, but anyway, people that want to say I was some kind of false prophet or false believer and I'm hellbound and all that stuff, just shake the dust off your sandals and go on. Because I can tell you, by the way, to the atheists out there, as somebody who started out as an outspoken atheist on YouTube, I can tell you all of those people, all of those really annoying Christians that berate you for your point of view, they don't go away when you convert to Christianity. They just start telling you that you're doing it wrong. So those people are going to be annoying people regardless. Anyway, but those are some big reasons. The next reasons, the more secular reasons, would be that at the end of the day, people like Gail Dines and Robert Jensen and all of those people, they really just have it's the same thing over and over again. They really don't have very much to say. I did a 9-hour deconstruction of Gail Dines' book Pornland. I think it's still up on my channel. She has not come up with anything new or innovative since Pornland. It's this. I once in a blue moon, I'll check back in on her, and it's the same crap. It's the same thing over and over again. So it's just not wanting to go on and on, constantly saying the same things over and over again. It gets very tiresome. But, another thing to think about is you the listener, the casual listener who are tuning into my videos and enjoying them, you do not realize the level of crap that I had to listen to when I was doing all of that stuff. People start writing in. I recently did, in my commentary on the Marilyn Manson, Evan Rachel Wood scenario or situation, I did a commentary on one comment that I got from someone that called themselves Evolved Ministry. And it was somebody who was doing nothing but gaslighting to try to get me on board with with the anti-Marilyn Manson side of the discussion and all of that. It was just gaslighting. It was just emotional intimidation, trying to attack the core of who I am rather than address the actual issues. And what little they did say that had anything to do with the actual issues was easily debunked. But anyway, I put a spotlight on that one comment. So far, that kind of comment has been very much the exception in the kind of commentary that I'm doing, because I'm consciously not going into it with an intention of annoying people and getting under their skin and pissing them off. Lo and behold, you get a better response from people that way. But that kind of psychological manipulation and gaslighting, I was living and breathing that shit 24/7. You cannot imagine how zealously passionate the anti-porn people are, because they have convinced themselves of a whole host of hallucinatory, is that the right word for it? Hallucinatory nonsense about what they think sex work is, what they think the adult film industry is, what they think all of that is. They have a mindset about all of that that is so it is so unshakable that not even people who actually work in the industry can get through to them. It is a level of religious dogma that most cults would kill to have in their followers. I mean, it's insane. And so I'll give you an example. A while ago, I think within the last few years at some point, I did a comment on a video, one-off comment, that was a response to Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, who was doing his big anti-porn screed and everything. And I did a response to it. And I remember I got this comment on the video from somebody, and this is not verbatim, but they said, I switched off the audio on your video and just watched your body language. And they said, you looked like a child that was throwing a tantrum because they were having their toy taken away from them. And they pointed out all of these body language, these facial tics and everything that I have. And they said, do you not, it's so obvious from just your body language that you're addicted to pornography and you're scared of letting it go, and there's resources to help you, blah, 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 blah. That person may well have thought they were doing something sincerely helpful, but all they were doing was gaslighting. And what they do, see, the thing is, what they do is, that's 99% of the people that respond to you when you're doing sex workers advocacy. That's 99% of the people that respond. What they do is they don't engage at all with what you're saying. They don't listen to your arguments. They don't even try to hear your arguments. They come up with a reason to push all of your arguments aside and attack you directly, in not even necessarily in a way where they try to cast you as a horrible, vile human being, although there's certainly plenty of that. What they do is they try to dig into your certainty about your sense of self in a guise of, we call it concern trolling, in a guise of pretending to care or appearing to care about your well-being. They may think that's legitimately what they're doing, but it's extraordinarily disingenuous and extraordinarily manipulative. Now, I have facial tics because I am severely OCD, and two, because in my early 20s I took a medication. I took a medication that had the unintended side effect of exacerbating my facial tics. So with all of that stuff, those are facial tics that I have from having OCD. When you see me doing this stuff, it's because I have chronic damage in this shoulder from 25 years of playing guitar. And so when I go do things like work out at the gym, it gets exacerbated and I find myself, working kinks out of my shoulder and all of that. So all of this stuff that you see, there are legitimate medical reasons that I experienced that. But that person thought they had found a way to bypass everything that I was every reasonable point I was trying to make, bypass all of that and act like they're really concerned about me and my well-being. And that kind of psychological manipulation and gaslighting and abuse, I was dealing with that shit constantly. There was a point where the vile, vicious attacks of "you're a horrible human being for thinking this," that started weighing on me too after a while. And that started getting really disturbing. Like the Stop Porn Culture, the organization that Gail started, I think she's gone off and started something else now. I haven't really followed it, but her organization, Stop Porn Culture, the people involved in that were fucking scary, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I remember one example I got. There was a woman, her first name was Olga something or other, and she was in, I think, over in Norway, I believe it was. and that there's a chapter or a branch of Stop Porn Culture, that's the organization that's very active over there, or they were. And she sent me this extraordinarily terrifying message with a photograph. It was a photograph of a fully nude black man in the middle of a tropical forest, having sex with the bottom half of a nude woman that had been ripped in half across the stomach. And the other, her torso and head and arms were laying over here, and he was fucking the lower half of her body. And the caption that came with it, the message that was sent to me along with it was, "We know that this is what men are at their core, and we're coming for you." And there were these promises of retribution and vengeful violence and all of that. There are people who think that and see the world that way, who are that far gone. And it is honestly terrifying. I was not terrified. I was not terrified for my physical safety by that person. I think in that context, it was just hot air. What's terrifying and what's scary about that is knowing that people that are that deranged in their worldview have you on their radar. That's really disturbing and creepy. Yeah, like I said, was I afraid that one of those people would come, physically attack me? No, but I was afraid in the sense of, like, I don't know what comes next with this person. I don't know what I'm going to have to deal with. That fear of the unknown, that was scary. So all of that is a lot of reasons. Those are some big examples, but I mainly wanted to close on the concept of the gaslighting, and especially the concern trolling gaslighting. I was getting all kinds of stuff like that, and it just was not. It's one thing. It's one thing when some when some bitter asshole is just flinging insults at you. That's fairly dismissible. But the people that are really working to get inside your head like that, that is a level of discomfort that I can't experience. That I cannot continue experiencing that. And I cannot continue engaging with people like that. I'm pleased that the new format that I'm doing in terms of how I'm addressing issues and talking to people in a more conciliatory, more even-handed, and less accusatory tone myself is yielding much more positive results. But I don't think that that is a conversation. I don't think that that is a technique or a tactic that I can bring into the realm of porn and sex workers' rights activism, and still maintain that positive equilibrium. And so for those reasons, I've moved on from it and set it aside. My personal values in those areas have not changed. It's just that I personally need to focus on other things. And honestly, the last thing I'll close by saying that I'm honestly at a point in my life where sex and relationships are not that personally important to me anymore, because I'm less. I'm at a point in my life, just because I'm getting older, and more partially because I'm getting older, partially because I'm getting more mature, which can happen at any age, and partially just because my focus has changed. I'm thinking a lot more about what I'm ultimately getting out of things, getting out of things in the long term. And I personally don't really get a lot. I've realized I don't really get a lot out of romantic relationships, specifically. And I choose to remain single at this point in my life. Now, somebody will inevitably say, "Oh, so you're a MGTOW." No, I'm not a MGTOW. I'm not in your fruity little club. Fuck off with that shit. Everything to do with the manosphere is vile and disgusting, and it needs to fuck off. And just no, that's a whole other. I've done other videos about the manosphere and all that bullshit. No, I'm not a MGTOW. I'm not staying single as some big political statement and all of that bullshit that they do. Don't write in and tell me that's not what it is. I have encountered those people at a far greater and far more intimate degree than you ever have. I know what I'm talking about. You don't. Anyway, but I choose to remain single, And because of that, and I choose to remain single, and really don't even want the level of attachment necessary to incur something as passing as a one night stand. Even I realize I don't, the romantic involvement ultimately, part of it has to do with me being on the spectrum. A lot of it has to do with me being on the spectrum. But that sort of thing puts me on edge and makes me uncomfortable and all of that. And I really don't get anything out of it. And I'm trying to think more personally about what these things are doing for me personally and spiritually and that sort of thing. And I really don't get anything out of it. I really would rather just focus on me. And so those things taking a back seat, being put on the back burner for me, make that kind of commentary not that important to me anymore. Not that interesting or important to me anymore. And so I hope that makes sense. Those are the reasons that I moved on from it. I just, and then at the end of the day, also the toxic, realizing, again, talking about the deep dive in spirituality, realizing that I had a lot of toxic pride during that time, realizing that I was, at the core of who I was doing that advocacy work while I was sincere in everything I believed, and I stand by it today. To this day, I realized that a lot of my passion for it was derived from the sense of personal aggrandizement I got out of it, and realizing that and seeing it for what it is makes me less passionate about pursuing it further. So a lot of things like that. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. My like I said, my attitudes around sex and that sort of thing have not really changed, and the free expression and exercising of consensual sex among consenting adults, that's not changed at all. But it's just not something that I can find it within myself to be terribly passionate about anymore at this point in my life. To all of the, I've gotten a lot of, like I said, positive response from sex workers. I've gotten college kids who have told me that they've referenced my work in their, in presentations they've done. Even some college professors that said they've used my content in lectures and that sort of thing. And that's very gratifying, and I appreciate that. That's really cool. But it just does not yield enough of a personal reward and personal payout for me to want to keep doing it in that regard. So I hope that makes everything clear.